to the main event. This is what everyone has been waiting for, the rematch. Heavyweight championship on the line. We had Stipe Miocic, the GOAT, taking on Francis Ngannou. They last fought back in the TD Garden years ago, a few years back. Stipe with a dominant performance, 50-45ing, Francis Ngannou after, a pretty scary first round, a few exchanges from Francis. And I think ultimately Francis kind of just gassed out. Was pretty relatively young in his UFC career, rose up to the top with just a shit ton of scary knockouts. So I think a lot of people didn't really know who to pick in this fight. Francis is a pretty big favorite, which I think a lot of people were surprised about, but he's coming off of 4 straight first round knockouts. I think he had 2 minutes and 43 seconds in 4 fights, which is absurd. Stipe coming off of that exciting trilogy with DC. So I think a lot of people were not underestimating Francis because he was the favorite, of course, but I think a lot of people thought this was going to go the same way as the first fight. And my God, were we wrong. Francis just looking like a different fighter. Even when I saw Stipe going for that shot in the first round, I was like, oh, here we go. It's over. And when I saw Francis sprawl, and I was like, holy shit, he knows how to sprawl. And then he takes Stipe's back. I'm mind blown. I know you're mind blown. And he gets him up against the cage. He threw about 20 shots to Stipe's head. And Stipe is just, I see him kind of wobbling. I go, oh my God, what just happened? And I knew there that this fight was over. Stipe was in trouble. And Francis just getting it done in the second round via just vicious punch. I mean, he's had some crazy knockouts in his career. For him to do that to a guy, and people are saying not only just the heavyweight GOAT, but potentially could have been the MMA GOAT, was just scary. His leg in the back, and then he gets the hammer fist at the end. My God, Francis Ngannou looked patient. He looked scarier than ever. And my God, he knows how to use his MMA skills, which was just shocking to me. Francis Ngannou getting it done in the second round via KO. Kev, break this fight down for me, because I think we were both kind of shocked at this result.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much covered everything. Going into it, I mean, they already fought before, so we kind of had expectations of, Stipe trying to get the takedown, and we had expectations of Ngannou kind of gassing after round 1, and those are the 2 big questions going into this fight: is, has he improved? Has his stamina improved? And I think on top of that, we just saw a more mature fighter as well. I mean, when he first stuffed the takedown and Stipe was trying to stand back up and he was getting all those shots off, he didn't stick with it. He reset and was a lot more patient. I think early in his career or against other fighters, he would have just completely swarmed them and potentially gassed himself out. But I think with this fight, he had the knowledge and the experience going in to, pick his shots. If he sees an opportunity, take advantage of it. And once it goes, come back, reset, and kind of conserve your energy for later in the fight. But yeah, I mean, the first round, Ngannou wins. In my book, it didn't look like Stipe was able to get a whole lot going. You kind of see it in his face at the end of the first round too. He's kind of looked like, I don't know, there's like a little bit of shock, like he was fighting a different fighter. And he gets knocked down early in the second, gets back up and throws a right hand. And I think he thought that he hurt Ngannou. He kind of rushed in, and Ngannou caught him perfectly with a hook coming in, and put him out, but finished the job with a hammer fist when after Stipe hit the mat. So yeah, super scary. Look forward to seeing him defend the belt, but I have no idea who's going to beat that guy.
Were you surprised? And I think we talked about this on the last podcast on how we just haven't seen enough evidence for us to be like, he's going to be able to take, defend a takedown. Like, were you surprised at that initial, when Stipe went in, that he couldn't take Francis down? Like, honestly, were you kind of just like, here we go, like, this is it? Like, I was utterly just shocked, because I remember, even when we were talking about it, we're like, Francis' mouth's already open. Like, he, I don't think he was gassing at all. Like, I don't know why his mouth was open, and he was, mouth breathing a lot. But like, were you surprised at that initial like takedown, that he actually defended it, and defended it pretty well, and then took Stipe's back? Like, I couldn't believe it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was just such a massive man. Like, trying to take him down in general without any takedown defense, I assume would take a whole lot of effort on Stipe's part, and then having him sprawl on top of him with an extra 30 pounds. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty surprising, but then again, it's the first round too, so they're both relatively fresh. Ngannou has the energy to defend the takedown. Who knows if he tried that again in round two, round three, if they were to make it that far, how that would have went. But yeah, I mean, and that's something we typically see in MMA fights. We don't see right off the bat takedowns. When both fighters are fresh, it's really tough to get a takedown unless you're, like a Khabib or an Usman or something like that, or just the opportunity arises. You can't really force it in that first round.
Yeah, I was just so shocked at like how, you know what I mean? I feel like even in the Rosenstrike fight, right? Like, although it was just an amazing knockout that Francis had, like, he was windmilling. It looked like there was no technique behind it. In this Stipe fight, man, like, he just looked so technical. He looked patient. He looked light on his feet, and he didn't charge in for a finish. Like you said, Stipe was the one that actually charged in, and Francis countered, and it was just a beautiful finish. Like, it was, you couldn't have asked for a better fight from Francis, and preparations, and um, just the way it was a different fight from 2 years ago. And I know that's why rematches are just so incredible to watch. But this was just like a night and day type rematch. Like, you don't see this kind of performance, especially at heavyweight against Stipe. Like, Stipe just went all the rounds with DC, one of the best trilogies ever. And although DC landed just a fucking perfect punch on Stipe, what Francis did was more impressive. Picking him apart like that. Like, DC had him in the clinch, just hit him right in the butt, and it was a perfect knockout. Francis actually picked apart Stipe. We saw Francis Ngannou throw a head kick at Stipe. Like, I can't even believe a man that big can throw a head kick. So, to me, perfect performance. And obviously, shout out Stipe. You're the GOAT. I don't think you lost any fans from this. You took on a monster. No one would sign to fight Francis Ngannou twice. That's why also shout out Curtis Blades. He did the same thing, but he got knocked out twice. But this is pretty interesting next, because I think, what does everyone want to see next, right? Everyone wants to see that John Jones fight. John Jones was just tweeting out a storm all day yesterday, today, saying he wants to get paid, saying, release me. I don't know what the hell he was doing. I think that's obviously the logical next fight for Francis to defend his belt. I'm worried that Jones might price himself out of the fight. You got Derek Lewis sitting in there in the next potential spot. But are people overlooking a Stipe trilogy on this one? Or do you think, like, the way he was finished, the damage that he took, like, I know he's probably going to be out for a while. Like, is that illogical at all? Or is, because Francis really didn't take any damage in that fight, like, he's got to get back in there in the next couple months, right? Like, what's the next best option? And do you think that Jones fight is going to happen this year? Because to me, I'm worried that he's going to price himself out.
Yeah, from the way it sounds, with the way he's tweeting and stuff, it seems like he's just gonna make it too much of a hassle to make a fight.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't see Derek Lewis having any issues taking a Ngannou title fight. So I think if he gives the UFC too much trouble to try to make that fight happen, I don't think they're going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I think they'll go right to Derek Lewis and make that fight. And yeah, I mean that's another good one. I know it wasn't super exciting the first time around, but they're both different fighters at this point, and with a title on the line, I think it just adds a little bit more pressure for the two of them to perform.
Yeah, and that's obviously everyone. I know everyone doesn't want to see that fight again, but realistically, people do. Derek Lewis has been on an absolute tear. Francis Ngannou just took out the GOAT. I would love to see that fight again. Going back to Jones, I know a lot of people are saying Jones is scared, whatever. Obviously, John Jones is one of the greatest of all time. I don't think he's scared of Francis Ngannou. I just think he wants to make a fuck ton of money in this fight. It's a super fight. I 100% side with him. Um, it just goes to show. I think there was some boxing match on Saturday. I think I read this stat. It was John Jones has made about like 7 million his whole UFC career. The dude, Dylan White, I think he was a boxer from the UK, or I don't even know who he is. He made 7 million just on Saturday night. So it just goes to show you the discrepancy there. And I get where Jones is coming from, but and I mean, trust me, I would want to get paid if I was fighting Francis Ngannou too. But taking a look at that and just like the way that John Jones has fought in this past, let's just say 3 fights, do you have any confidence that he can go in and beat Francis Ngannou? And I know like it's crazy how people are saying like Francis is going to destroy him, all this stuff, but like we're talking about John Jones, the man that doesn't have any losses on his record, right? He has that one, it was a DQ. Well, John Jones is undefeated fighter, let's just say. Yeah, has he looked great in his last couple of fights? No, but he got the job done. He won. And I feel like he isn't getting enough credit if him and Francis step in there. Like what if you were early prediction, right? I don't know when this fight would happen. I'm assuming sometime in the summer, but I mean, can Francis knock out John Jones, or is John Jones going to ragdoll him? Kind of like a Stipe 1 fight. I don't know. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Jones has a lot more tools. So he's got all those kicks and his wrestling is really good. Um, I think in a fight with Ngannou, I think the endurance and cardio of Ngannou is still a factor. I mean, even though we didn't necessarily see it in this fight, it was only what 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
The title fight's 25 minutes, so I think I think the tools that Jones has is are good enough to kind of keep Ngannou guessing on the feet, and then once he hits that point where Ngannou looks a little tired, might be easy to take down, and then I think it just becomes a different fight from there. But I mean, Ngannou has the power to knock anybody out. He's got the ability to do that. Um, we've never seen Jones hit by a heavyweight, and we've never seen him hit by someone like Ngannou. So even though he's had a great chin, in light heavyweight, Ngannou's a different story. It just takes one.
Yeah, it's that's such an interesting matchup because you got John Jones, who's one of the greatest ever, unblemished on his career. I know like fights like the Dom Reyes fight, the Thiago Santos fight. There's a lot of question marks behind that, but at the end of the day, Jones finds a way to get things done. So I'm curious to see how he would handle the power, right? And you
Yep.
look at his career. John Jones has one of the greatest resumes ever, and I agree with you. He's never been hit by a heavyweight, right? But he's been hit by guys like Rampage Jackson. He's been hit by guys like Vitor Belfort, right? Like Daniel Cormier. Just guys that are killers. But how is he going to handle a 262-pound Francis Ngannou who just knocked out Stipe and made it look easy?
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait. I can't wait for this fight to be made. I think this fight could sell record-breaking pay-per-view numbers because I think this is like a fight where it's like John Jones beats Francis Ngannou. He's the greatest MMA fighter to ever live. There's no questions anymore. There's no Khabib. There's no GSP. Jones just went up to heavyweight and just beat Francis Ngannou, right? Who is just, like you said, I think aside from John Jones, and I know Derek Lewis beat him already, but there was like 13 punches thrown in that whole fight. I do not see anyone else beating him. I don't see Stipe beating him in a trilogy. He already beat Curtis Blades twice, right? Just take a look at the heavyweight roster right now. Cyril Gane is someone who's going to be a question mark for him, and him and Francis are going to fight. They're like both just mountain of men. Mm-hmm. Everyone else just doesn't entice me, man. Like Jairzinho already got smoked by him. And I don't see anyone else giving him a problem outside of the top 5. So John Jones is the most interesting matchup you can make for Francis Ngannou. The question is John Jones going to price himself out this year? I agree. I think he will. I do not think that fight's going to happen this year. I think he's going to want too much money. I think they're going to make the Lewis fight probably in the summer. Lewis is coming off of a win. Lewis has been on a tear. Francis obviously coming off the biggest knockout of his career. He's new. And I think that fight's going to happen before we see John Jones. Maybe end of the year, maybe early next year. The way Jones is tweeting and like what he's saying release me. Like, I don't even know what the hell he's doing right now. I just don't see it happening. So looks like Derek Lewis is next up. And then, you got a guy like Cyril Gane who's just, undefeated. He's a friggin' house of a human. So that could be a great fight too. But at the end of the day, man, do I think any heavyweight can even touch Francis? No, he hits way too hard. And especially if this guy has, takedown defense, my God, he's going to be an animal. So I'm curious to see what happens next. John Jones was also tweeting out like there should be a proposal in my inbox next week. Like, so I don't know. It all depends what he does next. Dana White said if John wants to fight, he knows who to call. He'll set it up. So, but I think this could be the biggest fight in UFC history. I don't think there's been this much buzz around the heavyweights, although they're coming off of probably the best trilogy ever. Francis, I think, just cemented himself as like a superstar. Like, when you have like a true heavyweight like that, who can knock people out and put their lights out with one punch, his story is like incredible too. So I think that gives him a lot of appeal. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious, man, obviously like hell of a fight. Francis looked incredible, and not to take anything away from Stipe, but he looked off in there, man. Like even when he first came in, I felt like there was something off about him. Not that he wasn't ready or anything like that. Stipe's the GOAT, but he just, I agree. You said it right. You said like when he went back to the corner after that first round, like he had this look in his eyes, like, holy shit, like what the hell am I doing in here right now? Like this dude is a different fighter. So, but overall, just amazing fight. Shout out Francis Ngannou, defying all the odds, beating the heavyweight GOAT, and now he's got that belt wrapped around his waist. And my God, I feel bad for whoever has to go up against him next. Hopefully the Jones fight is made. If not, Derek Lewis, you're up next. Hopefully we get a better showing from this one, and we'll see that. I think Francis is going to come for his head for this one, and I think we could see a potential, Jairzinho type ending in that one too, with him and Derek Lewis. But you can never count Derek Lewis out of a fight. So, and maybe they'll make that one relatively soon. So, shout out Stipe, shout out Francis Ngannou. You guys are legends. UFC 260 in the books. Dana White, thank you for another amazing pay-per-view. Guys, the next time we're talking pay-per-views, we're going to have a full arena. We're going to have 3 title fights, and we're going to have Jorge Masvidal back taking on Kamaru Usman. So I cannot wait to preview that. We're off from fights this weekend, so nothing to preview. Next week, we're going to preview Marvin Vettori, Darren Till. That is an absolute banger of a fight. I cannot wait to preview that one. Guys, go to our website, www.flatlinemma.com. Go buy some merch. Go read our blogs. Get up to date with all Flatlined news. Go support the boys. We want to blow up our YouTube. You guys are doing such a great job on our Instagram. I believe 14.7K followers on Instagram. Thank you guys for the love. We love you. Go buy some merch. Bye. And until next time, Flatline MMA. Peace.